Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this last workshop today, Saturday. My name is Francisco Rodríguez. I'm a member of INCIBE, and I'm here to talk to you about privacy and anonymity and the internet. Fundamentals of Tor Browser. I don't know how many of you have used it. Please raise your hand if that's the case, if you use Tor Browser. Before I begin, I'd like to state that this presentation has been prepared for educational personnel, and I waive all responsibility. As I was saying, I'm a member of INCIBE. I hold a master's in this field. I devote my activities to criminal investigations in cyberspace, and I have participated in many conferences, CyberCamp, among others. When we hear about TOR in the media, what comes to your mind when we talk about TOR? Well, the negative side to it, cybercrime, and they often forget about the more positive part of it. And I'm going to start with a definition of the typical description of this project. We're very much used to the internet, and we constantly share information on ourselves and our private lives on the internet. What we eat, what we read, where we go. Let me explain this better to you. If someone wants to learn something about you, this person could be able to know what your OS is, the web pages you've served, the browser you use, and much more information about you than you're probably willing to share, of course, with strangers. However, if you use TOR, this will not be the case. Tor Browser protects your privacy and integrity in the internet, and it secures your data through 3 encryption layers and sends this encrypted throughout the planet. This allows us to communicate anonymously on the internet. Tor protects our data from the massive surveillance by governments and companies. Maybe you live in a repressive country that tries to control the internet, or maybe you don't want major corporations to use your personal details. TOR renders all users and makes them all look the same. It gives you anonymity. The more people that use the TOR network, the better, because it's easier to hide a group of people that seem the same. Yes, you can avoid censorship. Censors won't know what you're doing on the internet. Ads won't follow you for months after clicking once on a product. By using TOR, the websites you visit won't know who you are and from where you're surfing unless you tell them who you are. By downloading and using TOR, you're protecting those people that need anonymity. For example, bloggers, journalists, activists. Download and use TOR. This is the message of the team of TOR projects regarding the project. Let's begin by describing the background of TOR. This comes from Onion Routing from the Naval Observatory from the U.S. Then it was sponsored by the EFF since 2005, and now it is known as TOR Project. It's a not-for-profit initiative for research purposes. Have you heard about surface, deep, dark web? Are you familiar with these terms, surface, deep, dark web? I'll try to define each of them for you. Surface web. That's the internet that we use on a daily basis in our work, in our activities, i.e., the internet that is indexed by the main engines, Google, Yahoo, Bing, among others. What about deep web? What's the deep web about? This field is accessible but is not indexed by these browsers. Okay? For example, the content of your email account. Let's imagine that the content of our emails would be indexed by browsers, or that the info in your corporate sites would be indexed. Can you imagine that? And last, we have the so-called dark web, i.e., that which is restricted and isn't indexed by browsers. With TOR, this is not the case, as we will see. We'll see how we can access the info stored in the TOR hidden services without using TOR browser. And here you can see broader definition for deep web. We could include dynamic web pages, corporate site info, blocked pages, or pages with restricted access like emails, OpenNIC, Embercoin, Namecoin, among others, sites that are linked, or documents that have a non-indexable format, or those for which you need highly specific search criteria. In the case of the dark web, in order to access the TOR network, you need the Tor browser. But this isn't 100% accurate, as we will see. What about onion addresses, the hidden service well, we have version 2 made up of letters from A to Z and numbers from 2 to 7 and 17 characters. This has changed after version 3 was implemented. In this case, we're talking about addresses from A to Z times 56 characters. These are the ones we've used up until now, and these are the ones we will use from now onwards. We currently use both. Now, as I was saying, version 3 is already up and running. As I mentioned earlier, we can access the content of the Tor network and onion services from the web surface. Yes, we can, by using some applications and that allow us to access directly to the content of the Tor web from the surface. How? Well, by adding to the onion address the extension .tu, .city, .link, .cap, among others. What happens with this? Well, this means that we don't have to install the Tor browser, but the downside is that we find ourselves in a situation in which we can access to the Tor web from the surface web, and of course this is subject to ransomware. Are you familiar with the concept of ransomware? WannaCry? Have you ever heard about WannaCry? There are other forms of ransomware that can infect equipment. They provide us with an address of this kind so that the user, if they don't have the Tor browser, can access directly to the payment channel. So they position themselves between our equipment and the hidden service, and the problem is that they can see what you're doing. They're in the middle of the communication. They're in between. And they see the hidden service you're connecting to. They use DNS, meaning that they'll know where you're getting connected, and the sites that you visit will be known to them. And of course, forget about privacy and anonymity when using these services, because this is what the Tor network provides us with by using the TOR browser. However, TOR is not the only anonymity that provides us with anonymity. There are more. Aside from TOR, we have the Freenet network and I2P. I2P, have you heard about it? Freenet, I2P. But today we're only going to focus on TOR. There are other networks that are work in progress: Hornet, Rifle, Hyperborea, Osiris, ZeroNet, Lantern, among others. What distributions include Tor Browser or provide us with privacy and anonymity? I've mentioned three: QUBS, Unix, and Tails. Have you heard about them? You're probably familiar with Tails. Tails is probably the one that has received more coverage. So we install the virtual equipment, the virtual machine, and we have the environment we need in order to serve in an anonymous and private way. Of course, we also have hardware that provides us with privacy and anonymity. We have routers that allow us to connect ourselves to the TOR network and use VPN services. And sometimes we can use Raspberry Pi, like the Onion Pi project. All the connections that go to that device are routed through the internet. And on the internet, you have a lot of information explaining how you can do this. TOR in mobile phones. This is also possible in Android and also in iOS. What's most common? Orbot, which is the TOR of Android, or Orbox, also from our Android, and in iOS we have the Onion browser. So it's not only TOR, we can also use this technology in our mobile phones. What other services are provided by the TOR network? Not only navigation, but also applications like Onion Share. I explain this later. This is basically something that allows us to share files in an anonymous way. Tor Messenger for messaging, or Ricochet, and some email services like Torbox. Let's take a look at the technologies that help us ensure privacy and anonymity. It's not only TOR, there are other technologies out there like VPN or Proxys as well that can be used to prevent censorship in the internet, to surpass or bypass or circumvent geographic limited geographic access. Here we have an example of a proxy. Proxies are intermediate equipment between us and the end device to which we connect. We have HTTPS servers, SOCs, and these can be public on the internet these days. There are many pages that provide us with proxy addresses with a report. However, are we going to trust those addresses? Where do they come from? And on the other hand, we have a private paid for services. What's the downside? They can collect negative info and navigation, and also access to requests. Let's move on to the first practical exercise. Where can we obtain or find these kind of proxies? Let's see. This is one of the many pages available in the internet to download proxy files. Here we have them distributed or broken down by countries and also by protocol. And also depending on the level of anonymity: non-anonymous, high anonymity. And here you have the full list. Okay. It's just a matter of setting this in your browser and start using it. Of course, it's also a matter of whether you're going to trust this info or not. There are also web proxies like kproxy.com. This allows us to choose among all the servers, the public servers. So let's select one. If we go to mipe.es, this is the address of the proxy. This means that we would be navigating through a web proxy. What would be my real address? This is the real IP address. And with the proxy, as you can see, it's different. It's a different address. You can use whatever server provided by these people. We also have this browser that I'll select. Does this ring a bell? Start page. It provides us with navigation through proxy. If I enter the same page as earlier, take a look. Here we have the proxy option. So, simple as that, it would make a request to the server. And here it is. Here we are. As you can see, there are different ways of using proxies. Let's move on to the next practice, this one. Here we have one of the many plugins of Firefox in order to change address. For example, the best proxy switcher. Here it is. Basically, we download it from the Firefox plugin repository. Every 5 minutes, they update this. For example, here we have one from Spain, from Alicante, to be more exact. Let's check it out. 6214 168.22. There it is. There are a great deal. There are many. You basically look for the one that suits you best. Let's move on. As for VPNs, I recommend you to use them whenever you connect yourself to public websites that can endanger our communication. So what the VPN does is hide our real IP address. The server to which we're going to connect receives the VPN IP address, or it's also good to encrypt communication, as we can see in the flow charts. Our equipment, the VPN, and then the info would flow unencrypted. What's the problem with VPNs? Well, this part here, the fact that they can store the logs. Some weeks ago, they arrested a cyber criminal because the VPN provider disseminated the logs of a provider that wasn't storing the logs. Are you familiar with the browser Opera? Yes? Opera has a VPN service embedded. You aware of that? Yes? Well, let's take a look at it. Here it is. The upper part, you can see the VPN icon. It's not enabled. There are several, okay? Canada, the US, Germany, and the Netherlands, and Singapore. Let's select one, the German one. It's already enabled, and the IP is here, 185, 227, 151, 134. And here we have another website. Let's take a look at the IP address. We have some problems. Connection isn't working. Let's choose this one. Here it is. You can see the IP address there and the one detected by the server, right? Remember, this will only change the address in our web navigation. It doesn't affect the other services we may be using. It only affects the browser. Of course, we can choose this free option or hire one of the many VPN services available on the internet. And to this end, I brought a list with you with the top 10 VPN. Top10VPN.com is the website where you will be able to find this. This is one of the many that exist. And here you have a good comparative analysis. And there are scores given to each one so that you can choose the one that suits you best. And now let's continue. One we've seen the proxies, the VPN. We move on to TOR, which is the goal of this workshop or of this presentation. What's the main advantage of TOR? As we said, to provide privacy, anonymity, and of course, the communication will be encrypted. How does it work? We are there, and then we have the destination follower. The TOR network is made up of 3 steps: an entry, an intermediate, and an exit step. How is the info or the data encrypted? First, it's encrypted with the public key or password of the exit logo. Then the intermediate node, and finally with the public key of the entry node. And that's how we build of the 3 onion layers of the TOR network. How do we decode afterwards? Well, following the opposite process. The first node with the private key, second node, private key, and third node, private key. And we remove all 3 onion layers. What happens with this? Well, since we remove the 3 onion layers, the info, if we haven't implemented the necessary means, after the last node will be unencrypted, as we will see in the next slide. There you can see in the image the 3 layers. What's the problem with the TOR network? Well, it's slow in terms of navigation. And there's the problem with the exit node. How are circuits made in TOR? A circuit is made up of 3 nodes by default. First, the keys for each node. Each info goes through the circuit. Circuits can last 10 minutes, but this can be changed. And then we have a list with several circuits in TOR's browser. Here you can see the problem with the exit or outgoing node. There we have the entry node, intermediate node, and between the final end or exit node and the final node, the information is unencrypted. What happens if we sniff traffic here? What happened? What happens? Well, all the traffic that isn't encrypted can be accessed. And this is one of the reasons why TOR browser includes a plugin of HTTPS so that the info is encrypted until the final resource. Here we have the plugin included by TOR browser, HTTPS. What's another way around? How can we prevent this from happening using VPN on TOR or TOR on a VPN? Either option. The combination. We can connect ourselves through the TOR network to the VPN server and then access the service, or the other way around. First, we connect to our VPN servers, skip to TOR network or 3 nodes, and then connect to the end service. As I mentioned, the circuit, once created, uses several nodes of the TOR network. The 2 nodes are public, and now we're going to see where that info can be. But before that, with the TOR project info, we can create the map that I'm going to show you now, which is called TOR flow, TOR flow.
Creo que se está cargando todavía.
We are just loading the information using 3G, and it's going to show the traffic among the different nodes in the network, in the TOR network.
Ahí está.
Here we are now. As I said, the address are public with the exception of bridge nodes.
Con esto no podemos.
So we can have an idea about the countries where the TOR network is present.
¿Alguien conocía?
Did you know about TOR flow, any of you? We shouldn't think that TOR flow and hidden services are the same. They are 2 completely different things. So TOR flow and hidden services are 2 completely different things.
¿Seguimos? Vamos a cerrar esto.
Shall we continue then? where can we get the list of TOR nodes and the page TOR status? It takes some time to be loaded,
Pero esto es uno de los directorios.
but this is one of the directories that we can use. Here you are, TOR status. We can download the list in CSV format.
Tarda un poquito.
It takes some time to be loaded, and here we are. Here we are. The name of each node, the bandwidth, the time, the host name, and even the flags. What type of services we're talking about, whether entry, intermediate, exit. And at the end of the list, we can do a filtering if we want to filter by any of the data. I believe there will be around 7,000. Here you are. Exit node today, 708. Here we have 6,733.
Pues como os digo, de ahí podéis sacar todo.
As I said, you can get all this information. Not only this, we also have TOR metrics page where we can get information about this project, information provided by the company itself. TOR metrics. Here we have interesting information. How many onion sites do you think do you have? How many onion addresses there are there millions of .onion sites? We usually see the iceberg when speaking about the TOR network. We are not going to see the iceberg today, but according to the project TOR, the number of .onion sites is the following. That you can see in the screen, it'll be around 60,000 or more. We're speaking about not services but sites. Each of the site can give more than one service. But here, according to this data, today we have around 60-something addresses .onion. Did you think there were more or less? For me, those are the most reliable data.
Bueno, pues aquí os dejo esta página.
Okay, you can visit this website that provides very interesting information if you want to know this about this network. Shall we go on then?
Las redes Inproxy y Unproxy.
Inproxy and OutProxy network. What is an Inproxy network? The first allows us to browse using the anonymous network and go to internet. This is what we're going to be doing in a while. But the Inproxy networks only allow us to browse within the network services. TOR is an Inproxy and OutProxy network. It allows us to browse through the internal network services .onion, but it also allows us to surf to internet, to the superficial internet layer. We always speak about the TOR as if it was a website, but this is not the case. We can have any service based on TCP protocol, not only HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, Telnet, POP3, SMTP, Jabber, XMMP, IRC, SSH. Where can we deploy those hidden services? From a computer at home or in a Raspberry, or using different VPS providers that are TOR friendly and allow the deployment of those services, or cloud services. Browser leaks. Does it ring a bell? Do you all have your smartphone with you? Can you go and to this site? Browser leaks will say what is the information we leave when connecting to a web server. Let us go there. This is the information we give every time we access this type of web services in relation to the IP. For instance, look all this information that we're leaving. From the IP address, they get information about our geo-localization. It might not be too accurate, but we should take into account that I'm using the smartphone. Have a look at all this information. Of course, now I'm not using any type of proxy, nor VPN or TOR, so I'm just using the real IP address provided by the service provider. You can browse using the lateral menu, where you can see what additional information. JavaScript, in case it's active. So they get our fingerprint, our browsing fingerprint.
Vamos a ir viendo otro tipo de servicios.
Let us go and see some other additional services. Do you know about Shodan? Please raise your hand. We have a Shodan for the TOR network. That is the following service. Let's see if it works. It's not working. Okay, so it's not working. The name is Onion Investigator. What they do is look for Onion address and scanning their port. We had all the Onion address and all the active services, but it's not working today.
Referido al
About the fingerprint, we have the following service. I am unique. That gives information about how unique we are in relation to the signatures they have in their database. So you can try. I am unique is what you have to type.
¿Estoy fuera? ¿Me queda sin conexión?
I think I've lost my internet connection, the speaker says.
Genial. .org, perdón.
.org. amIunique.org.
Si nos damos aquí a
If we go to view my browser fingerprint, let us press it so we know how unique we are compared to the rest of the fingerprint hosted in the database.
hacer su chequeo, vamos a ver cuánto tarda.
Let us see how long it takes.
¿O ha salido el resultado?
Do you have any results? Have you tried?
¿Cuál es la respuesta que está?
What is the answer? Do they say that you're unique among all signatures? Here we have the result. Yes, you can be tracked.
Pues como es un servicio bastante...
So this is quite an interesting service to see how unique you are compared to the rest of users that are using the same service. Did you know this service? I am unique. Any of you?
Volvamos a TOR, ¿de acuerdo?
So let us go to TOR.
Como decía al principio,
As I said at the beginning, whenever we speak about TOR network, what do we find? What you can see in the screen is always related to harassment, crimes, interest by criminals, but they sometimes forget about the main purpose of those networks, which is to provide anonymity and privacy to escape from censorship. But of course, there is the criminal side. The bad ones use it to commit their crimes. What I always say is that we shouldn't consider technology just by the misuse by some, for example, with other applications as WhatsApp or Telegram. Do you use WhatsApp or Telegram? Who is not a WhatsApp user? We might punish those technologies. Would we do it? Because there are also some crimes committed in the use of WhatsApp. This year, the dismantling of child abuse networks or ISIS information. As you know, criminals are not only using those applications as the TOR network, but they also happen in those two messaging systems. If you come to our presentation tomorrow, you will see a presentation about fraud where we could see how crimes were committed at the surface web that we all use. So you're all invited if you're interested. But TOR, as all technologies, it also has its failures. I don't know, you know, if you heard about Tor Mobile. It's not the only one, but this is the most recent one. This vulnerability exposes the real user's ID, which is exactly what the TOR browser tries to avoid. This is due to a failure in managing the files in Firefox. What happened? The OS connects directly without going through TOR, so they can get our real IP address. This affected, I'm speaking in past tense because it's no longer the case, to Linux and MacOS, and is corrected from the release 7.9. It's not the only vulnerability. There was another one in 2013, another one in 2016, especially in exploitation of JavaScript in the browser so they could get the user's ID. What is very important whenever we use a TOR browser is to update it. Not only this, but in all applications, we will get this warning or message. You have to update your browser. And I urge you to do so whenever you find this message. And this is the TOR browser itself that has already all the settings just to be downloaded and installed and executed, and then you go to TOR network. How can you get the application? If we're using Linux directly from the repository with apt-get yum, or we have other sources, for example, through email, through XMPP protocol, or directly from Twitter. We can do it from Twitter at get your TOR, either using Mac, Windows, or Linux, and we will be able to carry on with the download, and especially with the normal channel would be the project website itself. To download it is as easy as go directly to their website.
Ostras. ¿Vale? Aquí.
Okay, here we have the link, and we can download it from here.
Aquí tenemos para todas las versiones.
For all releases. Now we have 7.0.10.
Ahora sí, ¿verdad?
Now you can, even though I was quite scared by the noise, but here you have torproject.org.
Mirar. Una vez que la tenemos
Once we have downloaded, we start. And here we have the home page. We can test it. And they say, congratulations, this browser is configured to use TOR. And here you have the assigned IP address.
Por eso
What are the settings? We could go to security settings. By default, the browser is at the lowest level. In 2016, there was a JavaScript vulnerability, and you had the setting with this low level. It was vulnerable. They could hack your IP address. But when you raise the level, or if you raise the level to the highest security, that is on everyone's choice.
Y si quisiéramos tener...
And if we wanted to make it portable with USB, it'll be as easy as this. We introduce the USB through the slot.
Creo que tengo el ejecutable por aquí.
I think I have the exe file here. When installing it, we could introduce the USB root, and with this we have enough. We can take the browser wherever we go. It's as simple as this. It takes some time.
Y diréis que ya salen aquí dos fotos de dos.
And the question may be, why do we have two cats in the picture? And I will explain why. You just have to wait. It would now be at the USB. We execute the TOR browser and we can browse. We're ready to browse, that's all.
Antes hablábamos de la
I was speaking about the dice distribution. We can also load it into a USB, and it's very easy. Using Rufus application, among many others. Do you know about Rufus? Here you can choose your preferred one. For me, Rufus is quite simple and easy to use. Once we have downloaded the ISO, this is the DICE ISO. And with Rufus, we just upload it. We select it. And as a root or drive, it'll be the USB. It takes some time.
Bueno, vamos a usar el mismo pendrive.
We're going to use the same USB. Once we have selected the ISO, we add the device is the only one we have. And first they say they will erase all data, and then you can continue. As you see, it's quite simple. Then we should take into account the booting sequence so that it boots from the USB itself, and then we'll have the dice running. We can also install it in a virtual machine.
Lo de la foto de los gatos.
What about the cats? Why? I'm going to introduce you the Onion Share service that allows us to share files through the TOR network. It's as simple as this. Once we have downloaded the execute of TOR share, we have an icon in our desktop. I'm going to stop the TOR browser now. The first thing is to connect to TOR network. What is the next step? What are the files we want to share? We're going to share the two cats picture. We just drag it, and then once we have the files, we turn on the server, switch on the server, and we have an onion address that is the one we have to share to the users that will access the information. It takes some time also. And here we are.
Aquí tenemos la...
This is the IP. Oh, this is the address we have to share. We pass it to the user. We can even set it so that the first one that downloaded the services will be interrupted, or we can keep it active as long as we wish. As you see, it's quite easy. Or if we do the same thing with what we do with a normal browser using Tor Browser. Let's see what happens. We open Tor Browser.
Mirar. Le damos a dirección IP y ¿qué va a aparecer?
So IP address, and what can we see? This service will detect that we are exiting through one of the exit nodes of the TOR browser. It tells us this, and it provides us with all the info regarding the node. It tells us that we are in Romania. So once again, we've managed to mask or hide our IP address. And let's now start the last part. And we'll do it from here. Blocking of TOR. What happens if they block our access to the TOR network, yes, there are some options that can allow us to circumvent or bypass this block. Action 1, if they block the addresses targeting the entry IPs, we can use bridge. Bridge allows us to issue a request to TOR projects so that they provide us with a series of addresses in order to be able to connect ourselves. Because we've seen the entry addresses of TOR networks are public, so we're going to ask them for other addresses that are not blocked. And we can do it from their own website, from the TOR project network and the section bridges. How can we do this?
Aquí tenemos. Aquí que usted nos dice los pasos. El primero.
Okay, here we have the steps. We have to download TOR browsers, bridges, and how we can add these addresses. So we can do this here. We can request the conventional ones or provide us with a bridge. You click on it. I'm pretty bad with camp chats. And there's the list. This bridge list can be set with your TOR browser in this part here, in this section. And we see that we're unable to connect. The configuration of the setting would be as follows. TOR network settings, and here we paste what we had copied and press OK. And this would have already set the bridges in our browser. And let's continue as it connects. While it connects, well, there it is. We're already connected. There's something I didn't mention. If you want to see the circuit we've established, you can see it here. See? Here it is. We've connected it through a bridge. Bridge, France, Romania, internet. There we have the circuit, okay? We can even request a new circuit for this site. Let's do so. Let's create a new circuit. Here we have another one. Take a look. User bridge, France, the Netherlands. Okay? Okay, this is what we've just done. If we wouldn't be able to access our webpage for whatever reason, we can do this also through email, bridge at torproject.com, including as a title, dead bridge. So that's another way of doing it. Requesting this via email. What happens if the provider blocks the TOR traffic and inspects the packages? What happens if it detects TOR access and doesn't block it? Well, we can circumvent this. How? By using the Plux M transfer. This transforms our TOR traffic into a completely different traffic. We can make the provider believe that our TOR traffic is streaming, so we would be able to overcome this restriction. When requesting the bridge, we would ask him to use these plugs, and as before, this is pasted, and we are able to overcome this restriction. And another of the problems we may have is that we can want to use Tor Browser, but the service provider detects that we're wanting to connect through an exit node of Tor. What can we do? Us, the Tor circuit, and then we can set one of the proxies we've seen earlier. This is not in one of the lists of blocking of the server, and therefore we can do this. The problem is that it will be slower. There are 3 jumps, 3 steps in a proxy, but we will be able to gain access. And here's another list of proxies aside from the one I showed you earlier. And that's the end of this basic course on TOR browser. I'll be more than happy to answer your queries, your questions. Thanks very much for your attention. Any questions, comments? Microphone, please. I'm afraid I don't know. For onion share, is there a limit as to the subjects of the file? As to the size of the files? I'm afraid I don't know. I've always used this with pretty small files, but I have no idea as to the size limit of how heavy a file that we want to send through onion share could be. I'm sorry. Is it safe to introduce credentials in an email within the TOR network? I wouldn't recommend that because of the exit node problematics. If there's someone listening in that exit node and you're not encrypting the communication beyond that node, if the credentials are in plain text, they may be stolen or collected. Thanks very much, everybody.